And all this meeting's being recorded. Um, it's a necessary growing pain when you're new. Every single thing you do, there'll be a first time, and there'll be probably a few times where you feel like you and your clients are like on the lifeboat together, and you're just learning together. But doing open houses, I've gained a lot from that. First thing is, when I was first starting out, it was a really good way to build rapport with other agents, especially agents who I admired. So I would reach out to them if they were asking for help doing an open house, or if they had a listing, like a new listing pop up, especially if it was in one of the neighborhoods or the type of house that I wanted to um, kind of be associated with. I would ask them, can I hold your listing open for you? And a lot of times people said yes. And if you do great follow up, which I'll get to in a little bit, then it's just a great way to build a relationship with someone and become a go to for when they need showing help, when they need more open houses, or even if they want to refer business to you. I've had my second, so my number one way of getting clients is referrals from other clients. Number two is referrals from other agents. And number three is picking up people at open houses. So another reason is just get familiarity, just starting to get used to talking to people about this and feeling like an expert. Another reason is to actually sell the listing you're in, which is kind of more important if it's your own listing to you, and then of course it's a great way to meet people. One of the first questions that you ask people, or when they come in the door, usually what I say is something like, hey, welcome, good to see you. You know, this is like a cool historic Benson Foursquare. Don't miss the blah. I give people a scavenger hunt. That just gives me some excuse to talk to them. So don't miss the remodeled master bath, or there's the weirdest basement bar downstairs. I can't wait to hear what you think, or something like that. I give them something to look for, and then that'll give us a reason to talk when they come back. So I'm setting up a future conversation. I usually hit them with the second conversation is when I find out, are you working with an agent? An easier, softer way to say that can be, so are you selling another house and buying a new one? And then that's when they say, oh no, gosh, we're brand new buyers, or yeah, we're selling a house and our agent is Tim Rader. And then that's a good way to get to that information if you're gun shy about like, so who's your agent? And that's kind of how I started. Now I'm more comfortable saying like, so are you working with an agent? Or who are you working with? And then they'll tell you some name you've never heard, and you're like, oh, I don't know, Frangelico. But a lot of times, if they are working with an agent and they're not so satisfied, they'll kind of start talking to you about their experience. And I mean, I never, it's okay. So you're in a job interview anytime you talk to a new client. And what's the first rule of job interviews is don't talk bad about your previous job, find a positive way to spin it. So when they're telling me stuff they don't like about their agent, I don't say like, wow, what a clown, should drop that zero and get with me. I'll say something like, oh gosh, okay. Well, normally I would sit you down and walk you through the contract before we go out and look at any houses, have kind of like a home buyer class. Maybe that's something you need to ask your agent to do for you. And then they'll say, oh, forget that, I want to go with you. So I've had a lot of times where people, I don't try to, it's really soft. Like I'm not going to tell them, drop your agent and go with me. But I give the conversation will lead itself to them calling me later and saying, we just really connected with you at that open house and felt like you were going to do a good job. I don't have one on hand, but I normally bring two of my buyer, I have like little booklets that it's like a little marketing piece I created for myself, and it's set up like here's how to buy a house. There's a flow chart of all the phases of the transaction and copies of all the contracts. I usually bring one or two of those with me, and my goal is to find one or two people who I feel like I connect with, who I actually want to work with, and I might give them one of those, and then they can just get a taste of like, here's what I'm offering to you as an agent. You know, you may have 30 people walk through the door of your open house. I would not try to have meaningful conversations with 30 people. I would try to get like 4 or 5, something like that. If somebody doesn't want to talk to you, if they're avoiding you, like the kiosk person at the mall with the hair straightener, let them walk on by. Like they don't want to talk to you. That's fine. Be friendly, host them, give them the information they're looking for. But you don't have to like put yourself under the pressure to chase them down and make them talk to you. There'll be some people who want to. There'll be some people who leave the door open, and it's all about like reading their body language. From a like preparation perspective, I'm kind of sorry, I'm kind of bouncing around. I'll show up like 20 or 30 minutes early, make sure it looks good and smells good, make sure they don't have like a loaded gun or a diamond necklace on their nightstand table, that kind of thing. Usually it's good to tell a seller beforehand to secure those types of belongings. I will unlock the front door not until I am ready for people to walk through the door. And that means all the lights on, everything's ready. I don't want to be caught off guard or somewhere else in the house when other people are there. This is advice I took from Jen Manhart, who I hold in high regard, is I stay by the front door. And if someone were to ask me, for example, like, hey, why don't you come down to the basement and show me the XYZ? I'll tell them, I got to hang out right here, but come on up. I can't quite hear you and I'll answer your question. But keep your spot, like for your safety. I wouldn't go anywhere else in the house with folks you don't know. And when you're done, just make sure you kind of clear it, walk through, make sure nobody's there, turn off the lights, that kind of thing. Let's see. We kind of talked about having the conversation during the open house and leaving the door open. Let the people go who don't want to talk to you. That's fine. Greet the neighbors and the other people in the neighborhood as warmly. Like you might find out like this person's a looky-loo, but that might be your next listing. If they're seeing you're doing a fantastic job, that could be someone who calls you back and says, you did a fantastic job at the open house. Do you want to talk about doing a listing presentation with me? They won't say it that way, but that's what they'll ask for. Let's see, I've had a lot of people ask me about like, should I do snacks and music and all that stuff? My answer to that is if it makes your time more enjoyable, if it helps open the door for conversations and makes you feel more comfortable, by all means do it. Does it make a huge, I think it makes you look like you're like a hell of a good agent if you've got like a little spread and a nice like visual display, like you're having a little party. Makes you look good. It's fun to post that on social media. And like the name of the game of social media is finding excuses to post things, even if it's like, look at my, hey, I've got cookies over here at Ohio Street. Nobody's going to come to your open house for the cookies, but you got an Instagram post out of it. That's good. And it makes you look like you're like on top of things and a really great agent. So impressions wise, that's really nice. But I don't think that's not where the rubber meets the road. That's just creating an atmosphere where you feel comfortable having conversations with people is number one. And number two, you get a social media post out of it. So do if it makes you feel good. That's the best advice there.
Do you do a social media post like, hey, here I am at this open house? I see a lot of agents do that. Like
do the lives. Oh, like being real with you, I used to do it when I had nothing else to post about. Okay. And that is not like putting down any, like when you're brand new, you don't have a lot to post about. And you probably don't have a lot of, like you wish you were busier, and that gives you something to do. And again, like just like all social media, the truth of it is like that lives on its own as its own thing. It like you do stuff for the gram, put it up there. And is that going to attract people to your open house? Probably not. Is it going to show people that you're busy, that you're a good agent, that you know what you're talking about, and that you're like out and about and you're like a real realtor? Yes. So I would kind of separate in your mind like The open house is its own thing, and the opportunity to showcase yourself as a realtor on social media is another.
So
That's my
what you're saying, I think is a good point. And that's why I'm going to stay on this for just a second.
sure.
So, um, is instead of saying, well, it doesn't do any good, like who's gonna come to my open house just because I just posted it? That that's not the goal.
That's
The
not the
goal
goal.
is what you're saying. I really like that. And I think people need to understand that is that the
And
goal is activity behooves activity.
yes, and honestly, like that's the reason why I get video done of all of my listings. I don't think the video, like Zillow doesn't make it easy for people to look at the videos. Like I don't think that enough of the consumer sees the video.
Mhm.
It's good to have those listing videos. I like to do them on all of my listings because I can show a future seller, here's what I'm doing for marketing in an environment where people don't want to pay commissions and they feel like any like person off the street can sell their house. Like I can show like here's how I'm adding value, and I can kind of showcase like here I am as a seller's agent out in the world. Like that's my goal with the videos for
Right.
listing. um,
For building your business, not
yeah,
not
yeah, it's like
necessarily for, yeah, that makes sense.
like less about selling the house and more about selling myself as a realtor. And if it helps me sell the house, that's awesome. But we all know the reality of the market that we're in right now.
Yeah.
Um, but that $120 or whatever it cost me, like to me, that helps me build a resume that lives online that shows here's what kind of listing agent I am. And the same with your open house type videos. I used to do like a preview video, so it wasn't like a live. Here I am. I'm doing this open house right now. If it were my own listing, especially, I would arrive there like a day or two before and do a little kind of promo video on my own and nothing fancy. Like I would set my phone up on a tripod or lean it against a pot or on a bookcase or something and just do a quick, like, here's the house I'm at, holding it open on Sunday. And by the way, here are the reasons why, for in my case, like you want to work with a realtor who specializes in old houses. And so I would have like a topic to discuss in addition to, and guess what? I'm holding this historic house open on Sunday. If you want to talk more about that, stop on by.
Hmm.
So use your every opportunity you have in real estate to do what you're doing in front of you and make hay out of it on social media. And that's not a cynical perspective. That's just like 2 for 1. That's just being efficient. Um, so what else?
I had a quick question,
Yeah.
if that's okay. Um, is there any kind of typical protocol or anything done like when you're holding open someone else's open house? Is there any like rule or anything in terms of marketing it just with it looking like your open house? Or I just never want to step on people's toes. So I don't know what the kind of typical protocol is with that.
So I think most realtors would agree that when someone is holding our listing open for us, we are grateful for them to do it, and it's cool for them to market the hell out of it. And do you want to say like 5819 Ohio Street, this is my new listing, blah, blah, blah? No, you don't have to do that. You just say, I'm holding open this fantastic house. And then you talk about it like you would any other house. But yeah, make a social media graphic, all that stuff. Market it like you would your own without saying that it's your own because that's not true. But no, none of us would begrudge someone the opportunity to attract customers to our listings. So I would feel 100% comfortable with Nolan Prevo is a good example of someone who holds other people's listings open all the time, but he makes a little graphic that's consistent with the look and feel of his social media. And he's not saying anything untoward in there. He's just saying, I'm holding this house open. And that's perfectly acceptable. That's a good, I had the same kind of qualm when I started. Like, does it look like I'm pretending this is my listing or taking credit for someone else's work? And the answer is, I think the standard practice is you just promote it as this is my open house today. Would
And I
you
think
agree?
the listing agents are so appreciative of
Mhm.
somebody else doing their open.
Yes.
Honestly, I don't care what you do.
Mhm.
You can even call it your, it doesn't really, it doesn't matter, whatever is going to um, take care of my clients,
Mhm.
make them happy, help sell the house, and help you along
Mhm.
the way. I mean, we all know that have been around for a while that's your, honestly, to me, open houses are the best way to build your business or rebuild your business. I've rebuilt my business twice, and both times that I rebuilt my business, I can tell you right now that the biggest percentage of the business that I built came from open houses.
And the cool thing is when you are marketing it on your social media channels, like hopefully a listing agent is promoting it on theirs. You're doing it on yours. There's probably not a lot of overlap between your two audiences. So you're doubling your
Yeah,
reach potentially. So I think it's the more,
everybody wins.
yeah.
And the better job you do, the better the client is going to feel about what's happening out there on their behalf. So I think it's a win-win-win all around. But I think that's a really, really good question for you to ask and to
That
have
is a
that
great question.
concern.
I remember having the same
Yeah.
kind of misgivings about that. So when you're done and closed up for the day, so the name of the game with people coming through the door is to capture information. So you're going to get, um, I usually take a tally mark of all the individual adult people who come through the door. Um, so you could count it by groups, but I count it by individuals because frankly, like a seller wants to hear there were 39 people, not that there were 20 couples. You know what I mean? It's just about a number.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter if it's someone's aunt visiting from North Kakalaki, they're tagging along with them, just count everybody. Um, and so there's different approaches and you got to find what feels comfortable and works well for you. And I've done them all. Some people have every single person who walks through the door sign in, information capture thing. That's just not my style. I would rather capture information from the people I'm having a conversation with. That's just my personal preference. So if I'm connecting with someone, then I'll get their name and their phone number usually and text them and take it from there. It's nice if you have a specific reason to follow up with them, if you can create an opportunity to follow up in your conversation. So like if someone asks a question and you don't know the answer to it, awesome. Now you have a reason to text them back and keep the conversation going. Another thing that I do is if I talk to someone who has a lot of interest in the house, but they're not going to become my client. They have an agent, they're working with Carol and they love her. That's fine too. That's an opportunity for me in my follow up to connect the listing agent with the agent of that person who is really interested. So, what I do in my follow up when I hold someone else's listing open is there's like several components to it. One, I'll tell them how, like, this is something that an email that I'm writing, and I'm writing it with the perspective of my listing agent who I held it open for is going to forward it directly to their client. So I'm not going to say, like, this house was really stinky. I think it's haunted. It was a terrible experience. I'm going to write it like they're going to forward it to their person, like it's going to be easy. So I'm going to say, we had a great open house today, no matter what. This many people came through the door. Everybody loved X. Everyone had questions or misgivings, or everyone flagged X. So the good things, the stuff that might be helpful feedback for them, like the air conditioner was super noisy and it stopped working, and people were worried that it was hot in there. That everyone thought the paint could be touched up or whatever that is, like stuff that's actionable and helpful, not like, you always hear people with like this weird feedback that is just very personal to them and their taste. Like that's not something that needs to get passed on to the seller. something that they can't do anything about. Like I would tell people, for example, like a lot of folks were concerned about the busy street. Okay, that might help them when they have a pricing conversation later down the line. Um, but if it's like a lot of people don't like split levels, well, this is a split level and it is
Don't
what it is.
come here. What are you doing in this?
Right? Like that's not, yeah, helpful, actionable feedback. But I'll say, okay, here's how many people came through. Here's what people thought of it, the good and the bad. Here are, there were like 3 people who were super interested. Nick and Jane, their agent is Carol Souza with Better Homes and Gardens. And if you really want brown noser points, then find Carol Souza's phone number. So then the list agent can call Carol Souza and say, hey, I heard that Nick and Jane were through the open house and they had a lot of interest. If the really interested person had a question, then the list agent could follow up and take action on that and call the other agent back and with an answer to the question. So again, that's going toward building rapport with the agent who you're holding it open for, and frankly, just like being a good colleague and like that's actionable stuff that you know that they don't, that could help them sell their listing. Like let's help each other out there. Anything else follow up wise? That's the main stuff. And then if it's your own listing, then you do the same thing. Like if there are questions, you follow up with them. If people tell you they're working with an agent and they seem interested, call their agent and say, hey, your clients, Nick and Laura came through today and they seemed really interested. They had a question about the age of the roof. Here's the answer. And then you're building rapport with the potential buyer's agent. For people who are unattached, buyers or even sellers, like somebody in the neighborhood, just come and scope it out. Those folks are fair game. Like that's your compensation for holding the house open. Unless it's like a builder situation, most of the time you're not getting a monetary compensation for doing an open house. Your payment is the potential business you get from doing that. So sitting there like a bump on a log and not talking to anybody and not capturing any information, you're doing it for free. And
Taking a nap.
yeah, don't. And you know what? If open houses aren't your jam and you hate it, do something else. Like there's plenty other things. I don't know what would be better if you want to door knock or cold call people, but I'd rather do something where the people are actually want to buy a house coming through the door. But
I have a quick question. Sorry. Yeah. So I've probably done like 5 or 6 open houses. I think the last 3, I had a total of 2 people. Mm-hmm. Like there was one in each and one didn't have any, which whatever, I get that happens. And I don't have a problem connecting with people and talking with people. I mean, there have been times I've had to try to like exit the conversation. Yeah. So I can move on to someone else or I had Tim's listing. I basically had to kick a lady out 45 minutes later. She was like the neighborhood queen. And she was great. She was full of information, but it's certain, so I don't have a problem with that. And everybody wants to tell me, oh yeah, I have an agent. And probably where I failed and Carol kind of guided me back was make sure you ask who their agent is. Cause I wasn't doing that. But I guess my question is, I don't have the problem with the connection with people and talking to people. How do you go from that to then actually making them a lead? There was I think I've only had one person who didn't have an agent, and I sent them some information on email, like via email, because I had their email address, and then I never heard back. So again, what is the connection point between connecting with someone and actually making them a lead?
So for me, it is like every sales thing, because you're selling yourself now, is finding their pain point. And that sounds dramatic, but like the beginning, when they haven't had any experience and they're just walking through an open house because they're thinking maybe I'm going to kind of buy a house, their pain point is that they don't know anything. You can solve that for them by setting up an appointment where you take an hour of their time and walk them through all the steps to buying a house. And I personally walk people through all of the documents that they're going to sign when they make an offer. First of all, it gives a good idea of how the transaction is going to unfold. Like that just is a natural conversation while you're walking through the purchase agreement. Second of all, I always tell people, I would rather, there's a lot of stuff to sign there. I would rather spend the time now walking through it, making sure you understand it, than waiting until you're in the heat of the moment and you have to sign something right now and you don't even have time to read it. Like, let's make sure this is something you want to do. So the pain point for the person who's just beginning is that they don't know anything. Often they're intimidated by buying a house, or it's been a while since they did it. The pain point for someone who's been at it and they've written 3 offers and they feel like they are just not getting any traction. And this is where you got to be careful, where you're not like, is it called? It's not going behind the sign, but it's stealing other people's clients. Is expressing to them that you're just making a good impression on them. And maybe the pain point for them is having a connection with someone and feeling like they know what they're talking about. I sometimes am really honest with.
Slope. I can hear you kind of struggling with what you say, but it is a slippery slope, because
It is a slippery slope, and
by the time somebody hasn't gotten, they've been rejected on 3, 4 offers. Of course they're going to be thinking, well, maybe I have the wrong agent.
Right.
So that's already in their mind. And if your conversation, they're pretty vulnerable. So you've got a pretty big responsibility. And there's agents that are not, they don't practice the highest level of ethics, and they would grab them in a second. But there is that just like, just what you're saying, I could feel that, because I think that would be a really difficult place to be. Like, I don't want to steal your person, because they probably have done the best job they can do for you. But at the same time, if they haven't, and they really don't know how to help you, I want to be open to you. So
right. So
that.
Yeah, like saying something like, I feel your pain. The reality is that most people are going to write a few offers before they actually get something under contract. So it may not be something that your agent's doing. I don't know what kind of strategic approach they're taking with your offers, but it's a tough market out there. So I'll sow the seeds of, like, I have a strategic approach. I'm not going, like, I'm very big on making sure people understand that I'm not going to ram anything down their throat or take advantage of them. Like, I'm here to give you the information and the tools you need. But I've had a ton of people who just felt like they had a connection with me that they didn't have with their current agent, and so they made a change. Another one is, there's different opinions about this, but I have a focus, like I have a niche kind of types of houses and clients that I like to work with, certain parts of town. And I really market myself on the basis of that. And I'm happy there. So for me, it's old houses, historic houses, Midtown. And so demonstrating that I have a specific and special knowledge, connection, and passion for that kind of thing, I think helps me get clients too. Like, I know what I'm talking about, and I know how to win and how to handle the stuff that comes up. Like, people respond to that. So maybe you have a niche that's like, I work with military buyers. I'm a new construction person. Make something up. Like, I don't know. What's a good made up thing? Okay. Krista Luther in our company. She doesn't market herself publicly like this, but she'll tell people, like, these 90s custom homes are my jam. Like, that's my zone of genius. Huntington Park and Applewood Heights. Like, that's where I rule the roost. And so showing people that you are the person for the job for them, and like you are tailor-made for what they're looking for, addresses a pain point that they might have. So when you're asking about conversion of the person who's coming in and making them your client, like, I think the most important thing, if you can, and if it's ethical, i.e. not stealing someone else's client, is to make an appointment with them. And that's especially easy when they're an unattached buyer. Like, they need someone to walk them through the whole process and the purchase agreement. It is the best way to start out with a new buyer too. because it's going to make your transaction go smoother, and it's going to make your offer process go smoother if none of this is news to them. If the first time they're seeing the first time they see the purchase agreement should not be when they're signing it to turn in an offer. And I almost never do that with a client. It's setting yourself up for like headaches down the road. So get all that squared away. So set the appointment. I have a email like questionnaire that I send out to people. That's like, hi, my name is Allison. What's your name? And I ask pronouns. How long have you been looking for a house? Do you have a lender? Like question, like these introductory, like information gathering questions. Sending that to people as like a getting to know you, and then being able to respond to them and set an appointment from there is also helpful. But that, I think setting the appointment is the big thing. And if they're attached buyers, there's a little more nuance to that, because they basically have to leave their agent and come to you of their own accord, so to speak. I don't send them a bunch of stuff and like do a bunch of legwork unless they're willing to set up an appointment with me.
Do you, with the people that you do get their information, do you send personal notes when you're done?
Usually I will send the note once I have, once they've done the little like getting to know you survey that I send out, or once we got the appointment. That's a good idea. I'm just never to the point where I've captured their address.
So that's one thing that I have not done open houses for a long time, but when I did, and when my goal was to help build my database, that was my goal, was build my database, and not even necessarily get a buyer right at that moment or a seller right at that moment, but it was building my database, which is a kind of a different mindset. And I, I was going by all the things that I was taught in the first Buffini classes, and it was, get this information from people, and I would get their name, their address, their phone number, their email, or some part of that. And then on the sign-in sheet, it said, are you working with an agent? Who, and then I would say, because I would take a look at it, and then I would say, like, who's your agent, and start that conversation. But if I could capture addresses, I would follow up with personal notes to everybody. Just thank you for coming through my open house. And these were people that, whether they were attached or unattached, I sometimes didn't know, or they'd lie. I had a guy that refused to, like wouldn't sign in on the sheet. And, and I would say, this is the seller has requested that they want to know everybody who's been in their home. And this guy still not doing anything. And the wife was like just staring at him. And finally I just said, make something up. Just make something up. I mean, he looked like such a dork then. I was like, I don't care. Make up a name, make up an address, make up a phone number.
Yeah, this is
Yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah.
That's A game. And so like the capture the info, like just two different styles of doing it.
And it's intimidating. It's very intimidating to say, I need you to sign in and have somebody just stare at you. So I understand your kind of, there can be a combination of those things too, because who wants to get somebody pissed off?
Yeah. And it's I'm careful about who I don't want to end up in one of those 45-minute conversations with anybody. I don't want to give a lot of energy to someone. Like my energy is really finite personally. And so I'm going to give it to people who I got a feeling about. And who I'm enjoying the interaction with. And if I'm not, then there's 29 other people that are going to come through the store.
And I think that's what's kind of gotten frustrating for me when you talk about like the 45-minute conversations. These aren't just like one guy came through, he had a whole chart. He was writing down like things about each house. And so we were talking about that. It's like, yeah, I have an agent. And I'm like, I mean, I knew this before I got into the long conversation, but you just kind of, so it's just an interesting, I don't know. It's like you make these, I don't know. Again, I seem to struggle with getting over actually making them a lead. So again, I guess that's maybe just experience, or maybe I think I have a connection with them and I really don't. I don't know. Like, but it's just kind of get that hump, I guess. Is
It's experience, and it's not going to happen every time. I don't
Right.
think. Like,
so let me make sure I have this right. So when you feel like you connect with somebody, you at that point say to them, you have your well, I call it pathway to home buying. I don't know what you call it, but you have that little book, you give that to them, you talk with them about that, you set up an appointment, and then you send the email later.
So I don't have like a cookie cutter approach to every single person. Have you ever done that Gallup Strengths Finder thing? Like
No.
one of the top 5 is individualization, like customizing it to each person, but there is sort of a template. If I have a connection with somebody, we're having a good conversation, I've broached the subject of, so my job is to provide leadership to them, and that's what they want. So I will say something to the effect of, what you need is to sit down and walk through the whole thing. Like, this is something I offer to anybody who wants to find out more about the home buying process. And from there, you find out what's involved. If this is something you really want to do, and they usually are like, yeah, of course it's something I want to do. And what you're going to need to know before you start looking at houses. So, and often by that time they're like, yeah, that's exactly what I need. Oh my God, our previous agent never did that. Blah, blah, blah. Like, that buyer meeting, there's so much value there. And if they don't want to sit through that information, they're going to be a pain in the ass to work with. Anyway, so I tell them, this is what you need to do. And then we either set an appointment right there and then, or I get their information and I follow up with them from there.
Did you notice, Jackie, that what she did was let them know that they're under no obligation? Like, this is not this isn't the goalpost here. This is how about if we step out of this environment,
Yes.
and I can just answer your questions for you and see if this is even what you want.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the more you let people off the hook immediately, and they're not thinking, oh my God, I'm going to get caught in this trap that I can't get out of. The more open you are to that, I think, which is what you just talked about, Allison, was.
Yeah.
Hey,
and
yeah.
I'll share like a personal story, and I also have client stories like this. So before my husband and I bought our first house, we didn't know anything about the process at all. We didn't come from families that even owned their own houses. We took a class and had like a similar educational experience, and we didn't buy until a year later. But we needed to have that foundation to get prepared to be able to buy when we did. And if we didn't do that, then I don't know. It would have taken a long time for us to be ready. So having this and you can tell people this, having the conversation now, even if you find out that this is not an environment that you want to buy a house in because it just seems like too much, or you have a little preparation work that needs to go into it, like, this is going to be valuable for you. And this is going to be something that you can carry forward, whether we're buying, next week or 6 months from now.
I have kind of an unrelated question, if it's okay to switch topics. Mm-hmm. I was just kind of surprised. I was asked this question, and it's probably due to this market right now, I'm sure, but what's a good go-to response when you're holding someone's house open and it's attached buyers? So they already have their own realtor, mm-hmm. and they are asking you for info about if there have been offers yet. And you don't know you don't know any information on that.
I don't know. Let me get in touch with the list agent, and I will have them follow up with your agent.
Okay.
Great opportunity for you to get that agent's information and
Mhm.
pass it on. It's, yeah.
They
Be
now
really-
are
Also-
waiting for you.
What?
What, Carol?
No, I just said that now they are waiting for something for you. Now they need something from you.
Mhm.
She
Right.
just created that situation.
That's a question that I
that-
usually ask the agent before I go in is tell me what I need to know. Do you have any offers? When are you reviewing them? That kind of thing. But if you don't know, or another answer is there weren't any as of this morning, but they're due by 6 o'clock today. So I'd imagine that people who are interested are starting to get their offers in. Let me find out and get back to you, or find out and get back to your agent.
Yeah. The other thing I was going to chime in at is even not in an open house, sometimes if you just have a listing and maybe you don't have any offers yet, and people ask you, hey, how many offers do you have yet? Well, it's hard to say none, because then it's going to be like, well, what's wrong with it? Why haven't you sold it yet? You basically start learning your go-to things that you say. And well, I just got a text while we were sitting here. Somebody asked me about one of my listings and if we had any offers on it yet. And I said, no, just some serious interest and several people begging me to keep them posted if I get another offer. And I just kind of keep it at that. Sorry, there's boys behind me playing.
Or it may be to your strategic advantage to say, no, you should definitely write an offer on
Yes.
this listing that's been here for 2 weeks. Nothing.
We got
Yours
nothing.
are good.
Yeah.
I
But Allison's point-
like any question that you can answer with, let me get back to you.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead, Tim.
No, yeah, that is right. That's a good one, because it gives, like you said, it gives them a reason to go back to them. But I like what Allison said at the beginning. And the reality is, you holding the house open, you should call the agent that morning, or even as you're driving there, and just say, tell me what's going on, when are offers due, what do you want me to tell people?
Right.
Just ask them, what do you want me to tell people?
Yeah. And maybe it's something that's pertinent, like they bought this house. I have one of these coming up. They bought this house 10 months ago, and as soon as they moved here, they got a job transfer. That's why they're moving so soon. Like something like that, you might find out that's going to help sell it and make you look knowledgeable. And then I'll say in the miscellaneous category, if it is snowing and it's a vacant listing, like I have this little foldable shovel in the trunk of my car, I would prepare to do some snow removal, like a little path and the stairs, in a towel or something for people to wipe their feet or leave their shoes on when you get there. If you, this may not be relevant now, but if you're requiring mask wearing in the open house, I would suggest that you provide the masks instead of turning people away. If it's a take your shoes off situation, having booties as an alternative is a nice touch. And there's also little, cute signs that you can stick in a little picture frame and put down that say, please remove your shoes. The first open house I ever did, it was one of Tim's listings. It was a house that had been vacant for a while. And I went to the bathroom right before, like 2 minutes before, and the toilet wouldn't flush. And there was no like container to pour water in the back of the tank so I could flush it, except for this like little soda bottle. So I had to refill it like 15 times in between people coming in, because I'm like, I don't want there to be pee involved. Like that's not going to help sell this place, this broken toilet. And I did let him know, hey, the toilet doesn't flush afterward. But
Also checking to make sure you have a chair in a vacant house.
Yeah.
That's important.
Bringing a
Or a stool or little foldable chair in your car.
Something like that. It's my belief though that just like retail, like when there are people in there, on your feet, like look
Yes.
along.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right, but the old open houses where nobody came in and you were there by yourself for 2-3 hours in a vacant house. Also carry toilet paper in the back of your car.
Or napkins, because those are so useful and bountiful. in the world.
Yeah, right,
Um,
paper towels, yeah, all of the above.
I
Yeah.
always have a roll of paper towels and a bottle of Windex in my car, and that for like real estate purposes.
Mhm.
Kristen Lale tells a story, like she'll do a little Windex kind of cleaning in between people, and if someone sees her doing it, and she's just like, now I look like a super rock star.
Yeah,
What else?
we have these bags that the green Better Homes and Gardens bags that we give to clients at closings for when they buy, and they have paper towel. They have all that stuff that you need when you move into a house. We just keep one of those in our car.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Yeah.
That's a good idea. Final like housekeeping stuff, I guess. Like for me, sometimes I do the snacks and drinks thing just if I feel like it and that sounds fun that day. I have like a little, it's kind of like a silver, tiny little tray that I put my business cards and some mints in it. And then I'll put whatever kind of, if there's any printed marketing material, I'll put that out there so people can take a card. They're drawn to the mints, they stay for the card. Seller property condition disclosure, I'll print out like 10 of them. Worst case scenario, you just leave them in the house at the end. If there's any kind of flyer, I'll hand that out too.
Pre-inspections, do you copy off pre-inspection?
If it's my own listing, then I do have the pre-inspection in a book in the house. If it's someone else's, I normally don't bother to print it off for them, but you do need to read the disclosure and any pre-inspections and have all that information kind of in your mind. Or if you can't carry information in your mind for a long time, like me, I have a tiny little notebook. That's where I'm making the tally marks of how many people are there and any notes that I have. And I'll just write like HVAC 2016, roof 2018, sewer scope was done and everything was fine. Like whatever information that I think FAQs that people will ask. And if you really want studying bonus points, another like conversation starter is to know what other open houses are going on in the neighborhood. And so if you like this one, there's a similar one 2 blocks away, or there's kind of a fixer upper around the same price 2 blocks away, or just like another way to talk to people and like, oh, you hit this one, maybe you want to go to the next one. And if you want extra super bonus points, you can talk to that agent and say, hey, I'm going to send some people over your way when they're done looking at mine. Do you want to send them my way when they're done looking at yours? That's kind of a fun way to build rapport with people too. I keep saying last thing, but I think this really is it. The basic promotion of the open house is something that the list agent and or their admin will need to do. So they need to go into the MLS and put the open house in the MLS, and then that will get syndicated out to all the sites. I think that's where people find open houses, is Zillow, etc. Mm-hmm. So as the person holding it open, I would make sure by the morning of the open house that it's on there.
Yes.
If not, then poke the listing agent about it, but that's not something that you're able to do. It's something that they need to do or have done. You don't have to advertise an open house 6 days in advance. People are looking the day before and the day of. So that's how people.
Where do you put your open houses on, like Facebook, Instagram? Do you like put them on many social media platforms, or just one, or anything?
So for me, the gram is where it's at. Everything that's on Instagram, I copy it and I put it on Facebook.
Okay.
So I will do both of those. That's really the extent of it. I don't think TikTok is your audience when we're looking for
something funny.
Yeah, like that's kids. Yeah. Twitter is, I don't know. I use it for weather and arguing about politics. Watching
as much as it's good for.
So like Facebook and Instagram are the ones. And it is also fun once in a while, depending on like what you're. So I have a lot of clients and friends who like to engage in my social media a lot. So if it's someone who I think would be cool about it, I'll be like, Sarah, I'm holding this house on your street open. Send your BFFs my way.
Yeah.
I'll get you some new neighbors. So I'll
Yeah.
like tag people who
Yeah.
live close, would like the house, that kind of stuff. Or like, Sarah, this house has windows just like yours. Whatever. Like I'll tag people and see if I can kind of goose the engagement on it and get more.
So basically be you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just be
And-
you. Like, don't be some other person just because you're representing a house for an open house. Like, be you. Use your, leverage that. That's really what's going to get you social media time.
And in the moment too, like all those people who like what they always say to me when they were trying a different agent and they end up with me is, we felt a connection to you.
Mhm.
And I guarantee you, when you ask that person, who's your agent? They were like, Dave? I think he's with Nebraska Realty. No, Dave, is that a thing? No. Maybe it was Berkshire. Like, they don't know who the hell their agent is.
Yeah.
Connection.
That's why it's so important to ask like their name. Oh, who is it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, maybe they don't like
Yeah.
their agent that much.
Honey, do you remember his name?
Yeah.
No, you remember it's the guy that sold us our house like 5 years ago. You remember? Like, yeah, they don't have an agent.
Yep. And give them grace on that. Don't make them feel stupid.
Yeah.
Like, well, I don't know a Dave at Berkshire. Anyway, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. Yeah. Any other questions, you guys? Can we wrap up here?
Incredible. Allison, you're so good at open houses.
God, no kidding.
It really is just be yourself and have natural conversations with people. And I
Yeah.
hope that takes the pressure off for you. Like, just be a human being.
Yeah.
You do
Oh, that. Yeah.
your thing.
He was there all the time, huh?
Yeah.
Anything? Any of you guys that aren't on camera have any questions?
Yeah. Yeah. They're not there.
I'm here. I was listening.
Hey, Dana.
Hi.
Hi.
I was just gonna say really quick. I've had quite a few open houses now, and I've had a lot of success with doing kind of just a print up of a sign-in sheet, and then I've put them on clipboards.
Mhm.
And I have like 8 to 10. I've lost 2 somewhere in the mix. I had 10, but I'm down to 8. Anyway, I have those. I grab one of the flyers that are made if they make them. Otherwise, I do one for them. And then it gives me something to hand them with the clipboard.
Mm-hmm.
Walk
Oh, I like
around
that.
with it, and it gives them time to fill it out if they want to. Sometimes they just hand it back to me at the end, but then I get another point of contact with them because they have to give it back to me. So
That's genius.
then I get their email because that's one of the things on there. And then even if they do have an agent, I usually follow up and just say something about the house, like, thanks for stopping by. This house is now pending, but if you have any questions in the future, here's my contact information if you didn't grab a card, blah, blah, blah. But anyway, that has worked. I did a couple before the clipboard and got no one to sign in at all.
Mhm.
And every single person, for the most part, puts something on there, whether it's, real or not. Like Carol said, I don't know, but I've got a much better response from that than having a sign up or sign in sheet and then they walk away, because nobody wants to stand there and fill that out and then somebody walks in and they don't want to wait. So
Right.
this just
I would
gives them
do it.
something to work on.
Yeah.
That's
Then
smart.
if I have time and they give it back to me and they talk a little bit about this or that, I kind of make notes on the back of their sheet so I know who it was that said it, like, they're looking for their mom, blah, blah, blah. This is what I know about them, so that I can kind of personalize the little note or the email back to them. But it's been helpful. So
That's good.
that's my 2 cents.
Good stuff.
Oh,
That was
I
really
learned
good.
something.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah. Okay. We're out of time, but thank you so much, Allison. You're just a Wikipedia of open houses. Seriously, it's great. Thank you so much for sharing that. And you guys, if you ever have any questions about open houses or Anything else that Allison can help you with? I'm sure she's open to send her a text, an email, give her a call.
Yeah, or whatever. Like we all learn so much, like from calling each other and being like, here's what's going on. What do you think? And just once in a while, someone will pop in my mind. Tim a lot, Carol a lot, where I'm like, I bet Carol has a good answer for this. Like, do that. Reach out to people and get advice.
Yeah.
And
Every once in a while, I mean, I get calls from lots of people, but every once in a while you call Allison. In fact, I love it when you call. I'm like, it's Allison. Oh yes, yeah.
she has a bizarre
It's
conundrum.
a random question, but yeah, I love it.
Always random.
Always here. We're always here for you guys.
Call me if you want to bounce stuff off me. Yeah.
Yeah, and if you want to test Allison, everything she taught you, watch for one of her open houses and go through.
Oh no, I'll probably be like off my game that day.
I doubt that. Okay, thanks. Tim, you got anything? Next week is
Sorry, I'm muted.
next week
no,
on
we're good.
14th is Justine, and she's going to talk to us about just lots of tips and tools that are available at the offices. So please be here next week, and we'll see y'all then. Some of you guys will see on Monday night for 100 Days to
Right.
Greatness. So, okay.
Good. Thank you, everybody.
Care.
I gotta go.
Bye-bye. Thanks, Allison.
you.